Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Echelon Cycling Podcast, where we discuss what's been going on in the week of cycling. And I mean, since it's the winter season, probably speculate of what's going to happen in the future. And as always, I'm joined by Patrick Blake of Outdo Cycling and Mr. Crow himself, Ewan Wilson. And I mean, yeah, what have you guys made of? Well, it's not even the winter season because apparently races are still happening, like in Hong Kong and places like that.
We're in this kind of phasing period where there's like tracks coming up with the Champions League, which I do also find kind of confusing because like Champions League is like a very football thing. So it feels like we're kind of riding on the back of that. But you know what? It's kind of cool. I might try get a bit more into track and report on it if anybody cares. And cyclocross is kind of happening. But yeah, like you say, it's just a bit of a dead period where you don't even have like rumors really coming out too much. It's like too far away from a season where teams haven't really started planning, I guess, what's going to be happening. But there are a couple of like still transfer rumors going around of some biggish names where we'll kind of pick apart that. But like you say, it's not much going on.
This feels like the first week really without any racing in a long, long time since like February, where we genuinely don't. It's like thin on the ground for any racing news. There are some transfers, but definitely feels like it's officially the end of the year. Sorry, Lucas Kirstelbecker over in Hong Kong.
We might as well start with a transfer story. I think it's quite an interesting one. Uijtdebroeks is rumored to potentially be leaving for Ineos Grenadiers, and we've spoken about him in passing, I guess, but this is the first real segment we're devoting to him potentially leaving Bora Hansgrohe after they signed Primoz Roglic. And yeah, what do you guys make of this? And is it a good idea?
I don't think it makes sense for Uijtdebroeks to remain at Bora, considering Roglic coming in with Vlasov in there as well. I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen at this point, and I think that Uijtdebroeks would be better going somewhere else. Ineos seems to be the kind of leading candidate in that, and I guess that does make sense considering they have a little bit of a GC power void in their team, which kind of needs filling, and they're going for a rebuild, and Uijtdebroeks will kind of grow with that. So I think that Ineos does make sense. But yeah, I do think that Uijtdebroeks probably needs to leave Bora because I think he's just going to end up just kind of like wasting away there and not probably getting the opportunities that he deserves.
It's definitely an interesting story, but to some extent, I feel like it's too reactionary to the current stories when the wins with Roglic. Bear in mind, Roglic probably has 2 more years of his top shelf life left. Dare I say, and Uijtdebroeks has still got 2 years to even probably reach a Grand Tour podium potential. Is that too harsh on Uijtdebroeks? I think like their paths won't cross as much as we might want to believe, if you get what I mean. And Uijtdebroeks has been super outspoken since Chrono de Nation, which we spoke about last week, saying that his equipment-wise wasn't quite up to the spec that he wanted and so forth. And he has been quite outspoken over the past couple of months, more in fact, very honest with the media, which has rubbed people slightly the wrong way. We'll see what happens. There's been lots of rumors with Ineos that haven't led to anything. But to be honest, Scott, I'm really intrigued about Jumbo-Visma, who released a new transfer this week. Should we talk about that one?
Well, this is the Uijtdebroeks clip. You can't just hijack it with Jumbo stuff.
Visma Lease bike.
Unless it's
Visma.
Uijtdebroeks to Jumbo. It's not a Jumbo segment.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, do you think Uijtdebroeks is a Tour de France champion in waiting?
Ouch. The
Uh,
guy's been, what, World Tour 2 years?
I'm thinking 5 years down the line. Bear in mind, as I said before, we don't know what kind of cracked 14-year-olds are still waiting. So we're going to put them onto the side for this. I'm thinking, yeah, like you got Uijtdebroeks, you're going to have that Del Toro guy who's been swept up by UAE, which I'm still disgruntled about. Jumbo have probably got somebody. I don't know who, but I'm kind of thinking Jonas will sort of phase out. Even Pogacar, however much we do like him on this podcast, he will phase out. I think that Uijtdebroeks is a Tour de France podium contender in 5 years' time, personally. I think that he's good enough on the longer climbs. He's shown that this year, but I think he's just got a big flaw in his like snappiness, like that like 1 minute effort. I think that he's not that great at, and I think that is a bit of a weakness now.
is his potential in the next 3 years? Do you think he's going to be better than Sasha Vlasov, for instance, in the year 2025?
Yeah.
Maybe
I
next
know
year.
you like Vlasov. I think that Uijtdebroeks was good in this Vuelta. I just think he's just got a couple of Achilles heels. But my worry then is if he goes to Ineos, right, is he not just basically like Carlos Rodriguez in terms of rider profile? Like Rodriguez, I would say is a better time trialist than Uijtdebroeks. And I think they're both good on very long climbs, but I think that both of them lack that snap which like a Pogacar has. Ineos basically does signing guys who are really good on long climbs, but that's not going to be like the people who are winning. It just feels like we're accumulating very similar types of riders, which might not be overly successful. Like, is it just going to be a bit silly to have Uijtdebroeks and Carlos Rodriguez as like a double header in a team when they're very similar and they're just going to overlap quite a lot? Like, if you have like one who's really good at one thing who's good at another, you can kind of to and fro. Whereas it's just like you just got two of the same people. So what are you going to do?
How about comparing out to Brooks and Hindley? We haven't even spoken about Jai Hindley. He hasn't been name dropped yet, but he's a Grand Tour leader, well, Grand Tour winner in that setup.
Yeah, literally. That's just another reason why I think Uijtdebroeks needs to leave because I literally forgot about Hindley. That's pretty bad. But yeah, like I think he has to go. Does Ineos make the most sense? Sort of. There's probably other teams which also make sense, but none of them are really jumping to my mind.
Well, one of you made the point in a previous video that he should go to Ineos Grenadiers because he's so, well, below par in the time trialing, and that would definitely make him better.
Yeah. Ineos are they've got some of the best time trials in the world, some of the best knowledge and equipment. And if Uijtdebroeks is complaining about his setup and stuff, then Ineos would probably be able to help him out with that. So I think that's another reason why Ineos makes sense. But in terms of how he would fit into the team, is Ineos going to be able to make him into a Grand Tour podium contender?
Couldn't you go to the Giro? Who's gonna like this next year?
Well, we keep forgetting him, Jai Hindley.
No, at Ineos, not at Bora.
Oh.
I mean at Ineos.
Ineos have not to be as fast if he actually goes.
Yeah, and like Geraint Thomas again, like,
and he's not getting any younger, you know. So
Arensman.
Yeah, maybe Tame Arensman, but I don't think Tame Arensman's a podium contender, you know. A bit like a Wilco Kelderman style, you know. He's not a winner, but he's definitely like a top 5.
Yeah, it's like when you properly distill it down, like the Grand Tours are won by a very select few riders. Occasionally, one breaks through a bit like a Hindley did with a Giro, where they kind of come out of the woodwork, and they're a little bit left field, where you almost didn't really expect them to do that. A bit like Teo did as well. And is Uijtdebroeks a bit too known in a way where he's not going to be able to do a bit of a left field raid?
But then at the same time, are we going to have the sort of Galactico phase in 5 years' time where we still have the same 4 people in Vingegaard, Pogacar, Evenepoel? Who else I missed out? Well, Roglic. Are they going to be the only people winning Grand Tour still at that point in a couple of years' time?
Yeah. Maybe a Ayuso slots in there, possibly, even though he was pretty resoundingly beaten by Jumbo this year. I do think Ayuso could creep into the conversation as well. But yeah, I think you are right. I think it's going to be held within those few names.
Would you say he should move to Ineos? Yes or no? I would say yes.
I'll go with yes, just because I feel like he should move. And I think that, I guess, Ineos makes the most sense at the moment.
I'm going to say no. I do think you raise a really good point about Carlos Rodriguez. If Rodriguez ended up at Movistar, I think that really would have made it like a no-brainer. But I think Rodriguez just offers a very similar profile. He's only 3 or so years older. I think he'll learn a lot, Bora, from Roglic in the same way Jonas learned an awful lot from Roglic. When he was developing up in 2019, 2020, when he was just a domestique for Roglic, he learned an awful lot. They get on very well, or we believe they do. But I just feel like Uijtdebroeks has more learning to do. Don't think he's quite at that Grand Tour winning level yet. He's still got another year in his contract at Bora-Hansgrohe. See where he's at the end of next year, how a whole year of being there with Roglic, Hindley, and Sasha Vlasov really ends up.
Yeah, that's true. It'll be like Roglic will be like Qui-Gon Jinn. Or Obi-Wan to Anakin.
But it could be like
Star Wars people out there.
Wait, so who's Anakin here?
Uijtdebroeks, obviously. He is the chosen one. He is the one who's going to bring balance to cycling.
And then he's going to slaughter all of Bora.
He'll slaughter all of the Board development team by the way that the Star Wars arc goes. Oh, that's a whole video. How Uijtdebroeks is actually Anakin Skywalker. Can you imagine a video like that? Make that the clip title. There you go. Sorted.
But anyway, Ewan, Jumbo.
Yes. Jumbo, what's going
Yes.
on? I haven't heard about this.
Okay, a number of things here for Jumbo. So Jumbo didn't win the UCI World Tour. That was officially won this week by UAE. There was a big presentation where Adam Yates, João Almeida, Felix Corrochano, Tadej Pogacar met some royal people in the UAE, and they celebrated with like a golden jersey. They also announced their new name, Visma Lease bike. It just rolls off the tongue. So one thing I do find interesting about this is a possible color change, given that Jumbo Visma are yellow and black at the moment. Jumbo, the supermarket, brings the yellowness. That's their color, is yellow. Visma's red. So is the team now going to turn red instead of yellow? Because we don't have enough red in the peloton already, you know. We're really short of red in the peloton. We need another big red jersey right up there at the front of the race. But they announced the signing of a really left field rider, Bart Lemmen, who's currently riding for Human Powered Health, as we spoke about before. It's a sinking ship. They're folding their men's team at the end of this year. He's moving over to Jumbo Visma for 2 years. Why this is interesting, he's 28 years old, only been a professional rider for 2 years. He used to be in the Dutch army. In the same way Roglic used to be a ski jumper, Bart Lemmen used to be a soldier in the military. And now he's transitioned over to cycling, and he's gone from Continental to World Tour in 2 years. That's incredibly impressive, despite not having any professional victories. He did win a stage at the Crèche-Brèche race, which is the Breton, usually a youth race. It's not only exclusively youth riders, but it usually is only younger teams. He went there and won a stage 2 years ago. Since then, hasn't quite lit things up, was 5th at the GC of the Tour of Slovakia this year and 7th at the Tour of Slovakia last year, was 4th on a stage of the Gran Camino this year. We know how much we love that race. But apparently, according to the stats and so forth, he is like supposed to be really good. Given his military background, to be in the military, you have to be incredibly fit and pass certain sort of fitness tests to be at that highest level for combat. And Visma Lease bike swept him up. For a team that are very sort of exclusive with their signings, this one's really interesting. They must know something we don't know.
Because they did kind of sign Jonas based upon, as we all know, he was a fishmonger back in the day. Was it a fishmonger?
He wasn't. This annoys me so much. He was a fish worker, but it was integrated in his cycling training. So he was cyclist first, and then this was a part-time job to put him in a regime. Yeah.
I thought you were saying this was like a part of his training. I was like, how does that help?
Eat a fish, no.
But that's the thing, like he actually had a cycling background.
Yeah.
Well, like this guy doesn't. Yeah. He's just like sprung in. It's a bit like Roglic when he signed. He had like a really good year at Adrian, then ended up on the World Tour level. Jumbo know what they're doing. They must have done their fitness tests and found out that this guy's insane. He was 4th place in the time trial at Gran Camino this year, behind 3 Jumbo Visma riders in Vingegaard and company. So they must know something. It just seems so strange that the best World Tour team, I know they didn't win the standings, but Visma Lease bike are probably the best team in the world right now. 3 Grand Tour victories, super exclusive. They signed the best riders in the world, and they've just signed a man who's ridden for 2 years. 1 year of that was at continental level with a team I've never heard of, and he's now ended up on the World Tour level at the age of 28.
On the World Tour ranking, do you think Wout van Aert cost Jumbo Visma the title?
In the monuments, do you think?
Yeah, and just overall not his converting many of those wins.
I would say UAE really got it from a lot of those smaller races, like the sort of Veneton, those kind of races where they really went for it. Jumbo didn't really target these smaller sort of one-day races that actually yield a lot of points. That's how we saw Arkea really do well in the World Tour battle last year. That's why we saw Israel Permita go down quite convincingly. It's because they didn't really target these smaller races as effectively as they should. In my opinion, I just think UAE were all round in every single race of the year, but in those bigger Grand Tour races, Jumbo were better. And their victories were more convincing, but UAE were just there in every single race pretty much otherwise in the calendar.
Bart Lemmen. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, it's my tangent. It was my tangent.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by this now that Ewan's brought this to light, because yeah, Jumbo just have an ability just to really turn riders round. And I guess with the removal of Roglic, it opens up maybe some more opportunities for some other riders to have a bit more leadership. I know they have brought in a Jorgensen Kelderman who might be the first ones to fill that void, but I feel like those guys are sort of destined to now be domestiques until Kingdom comes, and possibly some of the guys might get a bit of opportunity, but I don't know whether how he falls in their lineup. Is he just here as like, oh, he's got a good kind of like base fitness? Is he just like, oh, we're just gonna have him as a Van Baal type who's just gonna do a bit of everything? The only thing that makes me skeptical is that I remember a lot of hype around Anton Palzer, who went to Bora Hansgrohe because he was like some mountain hiking guy, had a massive VO2 max, and he just hasn't done anything. And I'm kind of like, is it going to be the same thing again? I don't really know. But I think I'm very intrigued nonetheless. And I'm glad that you brought it to my attention.
Yeah, I didn't. Palzer handled the Red Bull hype as well.
True.
Lemmen doesn't have that hype. No, I mean, it's not like Soviet Russia where we know soldiers' names by like because they're like war heroes, you know. This definitely wins the prize for the most intriguing signing of the year, you know. Every year there's always one gem of a rider who you really don't know anything about, and you dig into their background. It's really interesting. It's got to go to Bart. It's got to go to Bart Lemmen. There were like, I mean, alongside with the Visma Lease bike announcement, we also had the formal announcement that Wout van Aert's coach, and pretty much Roglic's coach, is heading over to Bora Hansgrohe for next year. There's also been some more transfers as well. A lot of confirmations at Movistar, including Davide Formolo and Remy Cavagna. We weren't sure about Formolo, but after Veneto, that was completely sealed. Also, a really interesting signing, Torsten Tren signed for Bahrain Victorious, another interesting one, a cancer survivor who had a real breakthrough season this year at the Dauphiné, had a really torrid Tour de France. Probably should have been better if he didn't, bad luck, crashed a number of times, if you recall. But his story is really empowering, and moving over to Bora from Bahrain Victorious, it'll be really interesting to see.
So you mean Uno X to
Bahrain? Sorry, from Uno X to
Bora.
Bahrain Victorious, rather. Sorry. Where's he going to slot into that squad?
Norwegians everywhere. Wasn't it Jumbo? They signed another 16-year-old wonder kid from Norway once again.
Oh, great.
But for Visma, it makes sense. Visma's a Norwegian company, so maybe we're going to see that team take more of a Scandinavian focus in the years to come and focus on sweeping up more Norwegians. In that case, should have gone for Torsten Tren. But
Uno X, I just completely like, you're stealing our gig.
Yeah, but they've taken Magnusco and Videberg and Leknesund all from the World Tour level as well for next year. So I mean, they're losing one rider, but they're gaining a lot. And I don't think I recall another Norwegian at Bahrain. We have Price Pedersen, who's Danish, but don't think I can recall a Norwegian being there.
No, I don't think I can either.
Yeah, I mean, it's been limited with Norwegians in the World Tour until like they kind of exploded onto the scene.
They're coming back. Give it 5 years.
They are taking over.
From this Christoph Bosenhagen generation.
The Danish generation is going to get absolutely obliterated by these guys. But yeah, we might as well move on. That was a nice little intrigue. We saw the Giro Italia route last week. We spoke about it. The three of us weren't exactly enthralled with it, but we didn't talk about this, which was silly. Should Tadej Pogacar go to the Giro next year?
We all want to see Tadej Pogacar at the Giro. We want to see him in pink. But, I mean, there were comments at last week that we could have glossed over about Pogacar potentially going to all three Grand Tours. But Matt White of Jake Lula, who's their big sort of boss over there, in terms of their sporting side at least, said that it's very unfeasible for Pogacar to do it, particularly with the weather as well involved at the Giro. If it's a bad final week of weather at the Giro, that makes it very, very hard to recover in time for the Tour de France, particularly with that sort of being prone to illness and so forth. There's also the timings as well of the Giro d'Italia. It's been moved back a week, so that can also affect the recovery time before the Tour de France. So it will make it different. We haven't really had in recent years people really go for both. 2018 was a particular exception.
What? Yeah, but that's soon. You're saying as if it wasn't in this like
No,
the last two
post-COVID,
decades.
post-COVID. I kind of
Okay,
put the line
fine.
at the post-COVID like era. Like we haven't really seen like people go for Giro Tour in the post-COVID time, apart from that COVID season where lots of people did both. But that COVID season was like insane in 2020. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I think he'll want to. He think he really cares. He's quite romantic about this kind of thing.
If Pogacar goes to the Giro, he would win, personally. Because there seems to be just this massive focus on the Tour next year already, where the fact that there's like this already sort of like people converging, like Evenepoel's coming in, Jonas is defending, we've got Pogacar, and then there's like everyone seems to have like an extra little like man or two as like a sort of side kind of like second, I don't know, lieutenant, like a Sepp Kuss will come in there, Adam Yates and stuff, and it's just like it's just crazy the level that's going to be there. And I do think that if UAE are going to win Tour next year, I just don't think that they can go with anybody else except Pogacar. I don't think that Ayuso's got it to win the Tour next year. Sorry, Ayuso, but if they send Pogacar to the Giro and then back to Ayuso for the Tour, I just don't think it's going to work out. I feel like they have to send Pogacar to the Tour. It's the big event. It's the big showcase for our sport, and not sending Pogacar there would be criminal.
I agree. I think it's too much of a risk for their strategy in terms of the team direction. But we haven't even mentioned Almeida, really, like in terms of what he does. Like, he's not a winner. Almeida's not going to win a Tour de France. Sorry, Portugal. I just don't think he's got that in him. Like, we've seen enough from Almeida to know he's a really good contender, but he doesn't have that winning edge. That's fine. Plenty of people have that. But he's not quite ready to lead the Tour de France team yet. He's the same age as Pogacar, literally, like the same age. Like, they don't have, I don't think, a viable backup really for the Tour de France. Maybe Adam Yates, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Also, I mean, maybe selfishly for Poggy, I know he really loves Italy. It's so culturally tied to Slovenia, but the Tour de France ends in the city he now lives in. Well, like pretty much, that's really convenient. He can have it like finish Tour de France, then go home. That would be really nice.
And you literally, if you go to the Giro, you throw away the Tour. Like, that's the crux of it.
So what's better, winning the Giro, finishing second at the Tour? Like, another second place isn't going to add anything to Tadej Pogacar's career, you have to say. But unless he wants to go for become then a new eternal second.
Okay, but Giro, Tour de France, Olympics, that's heavy. And classics, there's no rest.
But you are sending him to the Tour in this world, because I would say Giro, Welter, just take that one sabbatical year from the Tour, do like Contador, win those two, and then go back to the Tour.
It's the Tour de France. I feel like even nowadays it's even more concentrated on the Tour de France, particularly next year with Roglic and Dave. Maybe they size them out. There's lots of competition. All of the Galacticos are going. It would feel weird if Poggy was the only Galactico to not go to the Tour de France, given that that's been his big canvas over the past couple of years.
He didn't go to the Vuelta this year.
True, but the Vuelta's a bit of like an afterthought, really. Jonas didn't even declare he was going until like 2 weeks before.
I just feel like I would rather win a Giro than finish second for the third, fourth year.
I agree, but you got to think about it from that business perspective.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
Biggest race in the year, and that's got to be the goal for him. But that first week of the Giro, it's like crying for Pogacar to be there.
Yeah, they're trying their best to bring him. They really are. They're making it hard for him to kind of turn it down, aren't they?
They got gravel roads,
more gravel. It should have done more gravel.
All gravel, all cobbles.
Whole Giro just gravel. Up and down Strade Bianche until they finish.
Imagine. It would get won by Van der Poel.
What did you guys make of the Sepp Kuss remarks? Well, this is not Tadej Pogacar related. That he's kind of glad that, it's best for everyone that Roglic is no longer in the team for next year. And Patrick, you had something you want to add on Kuss as well.
Yeah, I don't really know how to feel about it. It's kind of, I can see exactly what he means, to be honest. I felt like it was coming to a point now where Jumbo was a bit of a there's just so many good GC riders in there, but it makes it hard, especially with like it was fine until Kuss won the Vuelta, where now there's a problem because now you have three Grand Tour contenders, and it's like, what happens with Kuss now? Because he's usually he's the super domestique who also finishes in 8th in GC, but now he's Sepp Kuss, the winner of the Vuelta of España, ahead of big serious competition. And I remember seeing that he was talking about the thing that I wanted to add that Scott was hinting to, is that he was saying that he's gained more confidence from this Vuelta win, and he's perhaps looking towards having more leadership opportunities next year. And that now makes me think that explains almost what he was saying about Roglic, where basically he's kind of like, it'll be easier for the whole team dynamic in terms of harmony that Roglic has gone. And I think that I agree with that. I think it does make Jumbo's situation easier to deal with.
It's almost like we've had like paradigm shifts at Jumbo-Visma over the past couple of years. It's like the Vuelta feels like one where that just completely changed the dynamic. Last year's Tour de France, when Roglic crashed out and then Vingegaard won, that was another big sort of move. And I mean, that whole like the COVID season, like building up to that, was also like that big paradigm shift of them becoming officially like the best Grand Tour team in the world. So this one definitely like something's got to budge. The thing that budges is Roglic, and I don't know. It feels a little bit like, I don't know if Kuss, if it's like been taken a little bit out of context, but like I think he would wish the best for him. Kuss and Roglic have worked so closely since 2019. Like, I think isn't every Roglic Grand Tour victory Kuss has been there? They've been through thick and thin together. They've been on training camps. They know each other. Like, I feel like he's not going to want ill of his buddy. And people, like, from what I've heard from people as well, is like Roglic actually, he gels quite well with the team. Although he's been pinned down as the villain of the Vuelta, he does seem to sort of get on with the team. He's got this unique sense of humor and sort of harmony around these guys. It's just like it's come to a messy end almost, an abrupt and messy end at Jumbo-Visma. But according to the sort of business side of it, these plans have been in work since the Vuelta. So I guess maybe that made it awkward around the dinner table with Kuss, and he's still thinking about that whole, well, back over in Durango, Colorado, now that he's on his victory lap in America.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't really begrudge Roglic because he's like thinking of that record with Heras. So it's kind of like you get it, but it's just, yeah, obviously everyone likes Sepp Kuss and the whole narrative with that. And yeah. Yeah, I think you both added to that. We also had the Tour of Guangxi finish, Milan Vader, adding a few more victories with Olaf Koy onto the giant Jumbo-Visma total as well. And yeah, you're definitely one who's very happy about this victory for sure.
Yeah, I really believed in Milan Vader a couple of years back. Had a really nasty injury last year at the Tour of the Basque Country. Didn't even know if he'd really bounce back to World Tour racing, let alone be back on a bike. Now he's won a World Tour race. So for Jumbo-Visma, Visma Lease bikers, they'll be known next year, as we said. It's pretty good going. I'm just saying it, get used to it for next year. Visma Lease bike, Visma Lease bike, Visma Lease bike.
So bad,
however, on the official UCI team list for next year, they were down as Blanco Pro Cycling, which didn't make me worry that we were going back to the year 2013. But we are to believe that it's going to be Visma Lease bike for next year.
We might as well come to the cyclocross as well, but we won't touch on that this week. We'll maybe look at that next week. Rider of the week. Obviously, there was a bit of racing, and yeah. Who's your rider of the week? I think we can all guess Ewan's now.
Yeah, but the thing is, Milan Vader made the difference in that race last week. I'm going to go for Bart Lemmen. He didn't even ride in the past week, but we're so short in racing, it has to be him. If you knew who he was last week, give yourself a pat in the back. A man who went from the army to becoming World Tour in 2 years. Pretty impressive.
I'm going to pick a cyclocross rider. I'll go with Van Empel. Pretty dominant victory. Pretty much just had to put Piazza on the ropes from like the start, and it was just very convincing. So another Jumbo-Visma victory.
I thought you're well. So it's like Luke Skywalker voting for the Empire here.
I know, literally. I'm trying to get on the inside man.
Okay, I'll go for Juan Sebastian Milano because he took a stage win, and I mean he's had quietly good season, to be honest, picking up stages here, there, and everywhere.
It's like the old school, like Sacha Modelo kind of season of like being like a B tier sprinter, getting a couple like World Tour wins. But like, if you would like rate your top 5 sprints in the world, no one would say Milano, but he's actually got quite a few World Tour wins. He's done well. He's done really well, especially like without a real dedicated train anymore at UAE.
Anyway, that's basically it for our 39th episode, I think, here of the Echelon Cycling Podcast. Do help us out on Spotify with a 5-star review. Hit the like button here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel as well. And of course, as always, thank you for watching, and we will see you around.